All right, we are back for another edition of the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast. Jonathan Howe alongside Travis Cunningham. This is episode 61, brought to you by Ohsweken Speedway and Bicknell Racing Products. Don't forget to buy your race tickets ahead of Saturday nights at Merrittville Speedway by visiting our friends at Vansickle Pet Value in Pet Value on Lundy's Lane. Travis, episode 61. I feel like it's pretty obvious who you're going to pick for this number.
Yep, definitely one of my heroes in racing. Driving Ivan Little. He was at the very first day Merrittville, and I think he raced all the way to the late '80s. So that's a hell of a career there. And he was just one of the main goats to start, one of the first goats. So he's the goat. And then another big 61 for me. I consider this one the main 61 in motorsports is
Nice.
Richie Evans, 8-time NASCAR modified champion. Died while driving and still won the championship that year because it was the last race of the year at Martinsville, and he already had it clinched. So he went out probably the way he wanted. That's what his wife said anyway.
Is he in the Hall of Fame yet?
That
seems like
in the NASCAR. Yeah, he was first
right?
ballot.
He was first ballot, right?
Richie Evans was first.
I was gonna say because there was like drama about Stefanik, right? Getting in it.
And that's not first ballot. Like he was first induction class.
Because they went.
That's what I meant. First class that got in was Richie Evans.
They just went back and gave a bunch of guys like retroactive, like we can't have a Hall of Fame without having these like 20 people in, so let's just have it kind of thing.
Oh, he literally won the NASCAR Modified Championship 8 years in a row. 9 times. I think it's 9 times total. He won it once in '73, then skipped a few times. Like I said earlier, when I literally went to Fulton because that's a track where Richie Evans got disqualified from NASCAR for a year because he was going. People used to go race non-NASCAR tracks under different names, and he was the one that was used at the scapegoat. It's literally why I went there because I wanted to race at that track. Yeah. How cool! And then there's other 61s. Derek Wagner's one we can't miss. He started as Mod Light at Merrittville and ended up a good sportsman runner at Ransomville. And he's from the States, so there's a good one. And Paul Klager started his career. His go-karts were always 61. His first Mod Light was 61. Then he switched to one Mod Light. His mini stock, he had 1 year in mini stock, and it was 618. Mm-hmm. So there's another 61.
Oh, currently in mini stocks over at Merrittville Speedway, we've got Dewey DeGroot in the 61. So I wanted to ask, because like 61 obviously has like that has so much history with Ivan Little. What is there like an unspoken rule? Obviously with the 61 there hasn't been, but are there certain numbers in dirt racing, especially at a local track, where it's just like, hey, you don't run that number? Like, you don't see too many other 42s around the racetrack, right?
I forget why Klager ran 61, but it's feeling like it was because of Ivan Little.
It's like almost more people doing it in tribute.
He was a Plaza guy too. Yeah, but definitely. I can't think of any other 61s that's run mod in Merrittville. So he's definitely the one that comes on. He's going to be the first one forever. Even two of my dad's customers were 61 because of Richie Evans, John Fletcher, and Wayne Getz, who's now on my sprint car crew.
Nice. So. No racing from Ohsweken Speedway this past Friday, but this Friday is Christmas in July, which is also what we're doing at Merrittville on Saturday night, I think, too. I think we both have Christmas in July. Friday night is also my birthday, so I mean, I don't want to say the whole show should be about me or anything, but that'd be a better.
Yeah. I remember when you were on the air last year for your birthday and you made it all about you. So I don't know if you're telling the truth.
It's just big Leo energy or whatever the horoscope tells me, whatever it says.
29 this year on the 28th. So last year was cool.
I think they call that the champagne birthday.
Last year was what, 28 on the 28th or 29?
I think 28 on 28. Anytime you turn your actual age on the same day as your birthday or something, I think they call that your champagne birthday.
Your something champagne?
Like okay. Yeah. I don't remember having champagne or not on that birthday, but whatever.
29. Yeah. I wish.
I'm just hitting my prime if I was to jump into a race car now. So if I'm trying to convince somebody to put together a go-kart program.
My prime was 25, 26. So although other people have been like Stewie, his prime was way later.
You could just be on you could be on a crest. You could be, you don't even realize you could be about to like crest up to something big.
Problem about my prime is the wallet.
That kind of affects it.
Anybody with big money want to join the TC Motorsport?
Yeah, maybe if you won the Powerball down in the States and you want to sponsor a Canadian sprint car driver, there's a good option for you.
Yeah.
Lots of.
And we would need less than others because we just need to buy the engine parts, not do the whole thing.
Exactly.
You can
exactly.
save money that way.
I'd say like, oh, just let somebody else do it, but then you would just get upset about it not being done your way. So
Or if they wanted to buy a brand new whatever all the other boys are buying something, I would like pick my specs a little bit better than some of the guys. They just say build whatever you got, and sometimes it's hard to tame. But like, I know kind of what I want, but someone else to put together, yeah, that'd be a
yeah,
lot easier on me. I had it made back in the day when my dad would
yeah,
just do it. Yeah, that's the one thing I wish I had now. I'd be a little bit more higher because everyone who says racing's a lot of work, try building an
yeah.
engine on top of that. Not just calling your engine builder and asking if it's a good idea. Sorry, guys. That's it.
Yeah, that is a very fair point. We should probably talk about, speaking of engines and building good engines, how about an open motor getting a modified win on Saturday night at Merrittville Speedway in the Core Pack Merchandising 358s? It was
Yeah.
Luke Carleton winning over Scott Wood, Pete Bicknell, Chad Brockman, and Freddie Carleton, rounding out your top five. But pretty special night as Luke Carleton was honoring fallen. I guess it was a fallen firefighter, Jerry Saxton, who
Yeah.
they both Luke and Fred have had his badge on the race cars all season long thus far at Merrittville Speedway. We'll talk to Luke a little bit more about this later in the show. He's going to be our guest tonight on the show, so it'll get him to kind of break down the whole story and the connection there. And either way, it was a really special one. It was also special because it was Luke's first win in a modified in 30 years. Second
Yeah.
ever.
I haven't won in 13 years, so he's won sports
Yeah.
and races in between there though, so lots,
Yeah.
more than one. So, but yeah, first modified, that's a huge deal. And yeah, I'm super pumped when I read that, especially because I think he wrecked
Yes,
Friday
he
night at
did.
Ransomville or had a little bit of damage. And yeah, he had definitely not the best night Friday. And so there you go, turned it around. I love stories like that because racing can really
Yes.
beat you.
Yeah, and it's good to see that Luke got back in victory lane. It was also his first feature win. I know you said he won some sportsman races. I think it was his first feature win in anything in over 10 years. I think this so
Sounds about right.
really was a real return to victory lane. Driver who's just heating up. Oh, go for it.
One thing I just want to say one other thing, just about the open motor and W16 panel. Like beginning of the year, everyone was buying spec motors because Matt was winning on a spec motor last year, so they all started the year without the sail panels, and they all switched to the W16s, and then that's why I was making the jokes. Like, do they all got to switch back now because a spec motor won this weekend? So is everyone switching back? I just like that to prove that they still can win. Like to me, it's not like you couldn't use Matt as a training gauge. You know, like in my opinion, he's always
Yeah.
going to win there no matter what.
Yeah.
Put him on D400s on prep tires, he's probably still going to win. Just the facts. And yeah, so to me, it's a little more equal than people say. Like everyone went, oh, I don't know. To me, like Ken Schrader finished fifth in a car he hadn't sat in all year with a spec motor. So I don't think it's that bad. He's literally one modified start a year, and he beat Pete in the W16
Exactly.
that night.
So
it's more equal than people think. I swear
I think
to you on that.
the competition is a lot closer than people realize, especially in the mods at Merrittville. Yeah,
Or even in the two
combos.
combos.
I don't think it's
Yeah.
that far off anymore, really. Over in the Right Choice Auto and Leisure Sportsman, Nelson Mason gets the win over Cody McPherson, Ryan Ferry, Taylor Vanderzanen, and James Friesen. Nelson kind of starting to really heat up. I mean, he's been bad fast all year long. He's really got Ransomville figured out, but starting to round into form at Merrittville now too.
Yeah. Definitely. How many win last year? 5. Started the season a little slow, picking it up.
I think it was only 3. I think it was 3 he won last year.
More than 3.
At Merrittville? Or are you
no, I'm talking
general?
overall.
Oh, okay, yeah. And
overall, he's won at Merrittville. He's won Ransomville. Is this his first Ransomville? No, he won earlier in the year.
Yeah. Yeah, so, no, he's won a couple at Merrittville.
Nelson, buy W16. They're cheap used to hit.
He's ready, man. I think so. We'll
see. Same price. As soon as your 602 is worn out or blows up, it's the same price.
That is a good point.
Yeah, same price.
A little bit of drama in the Hoosier stocks. Dave Bailey gets the win. Kyle Pellrine, Jason Fontaine, Mark Fawcett, Ron Logie are top 5 there. But the story of the Hoosier stock class was a little incident between Rob Murray, who was disqualified from the event after he purposely drove pretty much right through Ryan Dinning, who came back to finish 10th after being involved in that caution, but was running up inside the top 3. Murray was on the outside of the front row for a restart, tried to kind of squeeze down. And at first it almost looked like Dinning came up, tagged Murray, and Murray almost tagged Bailey and spun all three of them from the lead. It was almost like that. Remember that wreck at Talladega when like Brian Vickers turned Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Jimmy Johnson in one move? That's kind of almost what it looked like Dinning was going to do on their one restart. There was like a complete restart or re-rack of that restart because I think there was a caution into the first corner or something, so we didn't even get a lap. So they restarted it again with the same order. And Murray again tried to come down from the top lane. This time it looked like Dinning kind of held his ground, and if anything, Murray really just forced him down. I thought at first both drivers were pretty much headed like head on into the guardrail on the low side entering corner one. They avoided that. Dinning ended up making the pass on Murray. Murray lost a couple of spots being stuck on the outside, and then he just was not happy with Dinning and pretty much decided to drive straight through him, going into 3 and 4 to show his displeasure. And that earned himself a bit of a DQ. So that's even on Sunday, people were still asking me about that particular incident during the wreck fest that we had on Sundays at Merrittville. So making some headlines.
That time of year, weather's hot, tempers are high, people are sick. Not sick. Well, yeah, just getting, that time of year where your eagerness to race isn't as fresh, so the littlest thing can set you off.
Yeah, and it's hard to. I'd be interested to see. I think Joe Albertine, I can't remember. Sorry, Joe, if I'm butchering your last name.
I can't really say anything.
I was going to say, I believe Joe's got the video out on his particular YouTube channel now of that particular race. But even still, it's a drone shot, so I don't know if we're going to see exactly what we need to see on that restart. But
it seems to cover the whole track.
I think
kind of tell for the most part. That sportsman wreck.
I think where he usually parks the drone, he usually has it driving away. They'll be driving away from it into corner one. So I still think you're going to be able to see who comes down or who goes up kind of thing. And we can kind of get a better idea of what actually happened with that incident. So it'll be worth exploring. If it's not already up, then we'll check it out later on when Joe posts that one. And shout out to Joe for filming so much at Merrittville with the drone and posting those on his own volition. It's been pretty entertaining so far. Over in the Mod Lights, we had a bit of a duel to the end between Josh Slater and Brent Bigelow. Lap traffic kind of played a factor in what was almost a side-by-side run to the line. And Josh Slater back in victory lane.
Finally, yay! His dad always comes over and tells me he likes listen to when I make fun of him on the show. So I got nothing for him this week. A couple weeks ago, he wasn't allowed to go to Humberstone because of dad duties and stuff like that. Shouldn't say wasn't allowed, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. And I was ribbing with Ray at the beginning of the night, but at the end of the night, I was like, man, I should have went to see Josh's kid and just stayed home tonight, kind of thing, because I had a bad night. But yeah. I was jealous of him by the end of the night.
Yeah. So Josh finally ends the streak at, I think it's 5 in a row that it capped off for Brent Bigelow. Bigelow still, still like absolutely running away with the Mod Lights right now. But Josh ends the streak. And Chris Watson brought it home third, Ryan Anderson fourth, and Sean Iftati fifth. Shout out to Ryan Anderson for a great run and continuing to show how much that 44 has improved in 2023.
Yeah, he's my number one best improved driver this year for sure. Most improved.
Yes, for sure. And Austin Worstrow wins the Vansickle Pet Valu PV on the lane 4 cylinders over Kyle Rothwell, Olivier Larocque, Clinton Barrick, and Randy Allway. The crazy thing for Austin Worstrow is he told me in victory lane, I can't remember what exactly he said went wrong. I think it was something in maybe a spark plug or something to do maybe with the engine. And he had his dad run all the way back to Niagara on the Lake between the heat race and the feature to get a part that they needed to quickly swap out and get the 71 running the right way again. And he ends up winning the race. So that was a pretty cool story. That's how you hustle.
Good thing it was close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's far enough.
Hammer down. Yeah, it's like down by VRP.
Pretty far from Merrittville, I feel like. It's like 20 minutes.
I've had to do the jaunt to Grimsby because I forgot my steering wheel. I think once, or something silly like that. So
that's a little far.
Still farther.
Not fun. No, it is not.
Sucks.
That wraps up Merrittville Speedway. Like I said, we're gonna catch up with Luke Carleton, the modified feature winner, a little later on in the show, and hopefully we'll see you Saturday night. Be sure to grab your tickets for Merrittville Speedway from our friends at Vansickle Pet Valu PV on the Lane. The folks from Vansickle Pet Valu and PV on the Lane aren't just fans of your favorite four-legged friends, they are race fans too. That's why Jeff and Rhonda Riley, as well as their staff, have teamed up with Merrittville Speedway to make your race day experience more convenient. Race fans can now pick up tickets for race nights while grabbing the highest quality food, treats, toys, and accessories for their pets from the St. Catharines and Niagara Falls locations. Each grandstand ticket will also have a voucher that can be used in-store for a free pet bath at their dog wash stations. Drivers and crew members can also skip the line by purchasing pit passes in-store, giving them more time to get their rides ready for Saturday nights. Check out Vansickle Pet Value across from Best Buy and Walmart on 4th Avenue in St. Catharines, and PV on the Lane at the corner of Kayla Road and Lundy's Lane, Highway 20. And you wanted to take some time here to shout out a couple of the other racetracks around because we are a little bit thinner. No Humberstone this past weekend, no Ohsweken, but Brighton did run. So Tyler French, I'm looking over the. I believe this is the street stocks right here. Yeah, street stocks. I'm looking at. Yeah, Tyler French, Justin Ramsey, Steve Baldwin. Subbing for Brock Gregory, if I'm understanding that, or if maybe Brock Gregory subbed for Steve Baldwin, not 100% sure, but either way, 28 finishes third, Jeff Humphrey fourth, and Doug Anderson fifth in the street stocks. Shout out to those guys. And
those
shout
are
out to
such
Brighton.
big names from up there. That's what people like.
It's crazy.
All the street stock guys know that. Like all the main street stock guys down here know that. Like Doug Anderson, he's a multi-time champ, going to be a Hall of Famer. Same with Ramsey probably, but he's like a lot younger. But yeah, all those guys, good runners. That's why I wanted to say it. We should say this more, just quick top fives, even though we didn't see the races.
Yeah, we should talk about the Canadian Modifieds. Sean Gregory wins that one over Ron Wadforth, Doug O'Blenis. Hopefully, I'm not saying, saying that right. Leslie Mowat and Dan Price rounds out your top five there in the Canadian mods at Brighton.
O'Blenis used to run Sportsman. I know that. He's like back and forth a couple of times. Yeah.
Nice.
A lot of guys will do that, run Canadian mods as Sportsman and go to fun. All right. Brighton and then Sportsman at Brockville. Switch back and forth.
And in the late models, looking at the results here, the feature, Steve Baldwin wins it over Austin King, Ryan Lambert, Nate Rinaldi, and Kyle Sopaz. That was your top five in the late models from this past Saturday at Brighton.
Yeah.
And
there's not many people we said there that haven't been to our area.
No. That is the one thing about drivers. Right. They travel well. They really do. And when they travel, they don't just...
Yeah, they have to.
They don't just fill the field either. They usually end up... Like, how many times has Justin Ramsey come down here and kicked butt?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, lots of times.
Yeah, so it's... it just makes sense to go and support Brighton when we can.
Cox, another one. You didn't... Yeah. Guess he wasn't in the top five last week.
He was not, actually. And
Hennessy was another one, but now he's crate sprints up that area.
Yep.
Well, that was the other thing we were going to say. We were going to touch on that. It was a quick.
What's that?
The AST.
Yes, we have to get.
They opened their national tour.
Yes, we should touch on that. Before I get to that, I want to give
touch on that in our pre-thing.
Yeah,
yes.
Give the four cylinders a shout out here too from Brighton. Tommy Bailey gets the win over Shannon Davidson. It was either Shannon or Adam piloting the car. I'm not sure which side this note points to. It says Shannon sub Adam, so I feel like that means the sub is Adam, but not 100% sure there. Josh Bogart.
Brightons do subs. There's another thing to talk about.
So
they do sub drivers where we don't do that up here.
So what does that mean? Does that mean like just for one night you can sub somebody in?
Yeah, lots of pavement tracks do it too. Like if you can't make it, you can let someone else run your car and still get points.
Really?
Yep.
See, I don't know. How do you feel about that? Because for me, like I'm kind of old school and I think like if you don't take the green flag,
I would never let anyone run my car, so it's pretty irrelevant to me.
Okay.
So, but other people would. So
yeah,
that's different.
Yeah, like to me, I just think like if you don't take the green flag, how can I give you the points for it? But I guess.
But they just let you. I think you have to. I don't know at all, but I'm guessing maybe you have to declare your backup driver early in the year or something. Maybe not. Maybe you can just maybe once you do it, you have to let that person do it. There's got to be a rule 1 or 2 times. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just know they let sub drivers, which is something that's unheard of up here.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Flamborough used to.
I guess the other thing too is that we don't. It's not like we have like at our local tracks an owner's points and then a driver's points separating things either, right?
No.
Whereas like if
touring series.
If you're a car owner and you want the car on the racetrack and you still want to be represented in the points, like that kind of makes sense.
Just mainly for the trophy at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Racers tell you they love the trophy more than the money. Lasts longer. Trophy definitely lasts longer than the money.
Yeah.
That's fact.
For sure. So Action Sprint Tour, you mentioned the crates. They were at Cornwall on Saturday.
Ooh, started at Brockville.
Or sorry, Sunday. I'm reading that wrong. Brockville is on Saturday,
Yeah.
and then Sunday was the Cornwall show. So let's start with we'll start with the National Series event that kicked off on Saturday. I'm looking at the Eastern
It was
Tour.
supposed to be Can-Am, Brockville, Cornwall, but Can-Am got rained out. And they've been running crate sprints for the last 2 seasons now.
Mm-hmm. And I I'm excited to see Brockville, and I'm going to experience that. We're going to get on into that a little bit later on, but uh, sounds like Brockville is just one of those places that's great for sprint car racing.
Uh, it's a wicked little shape and stuff. The only thing I wish about Brockville was a little bit wider out of 4.
Yeah.
If it was a little wider out of turn 4, man, it would be just that little bit extra racy and stuff. But yeah, it's definitely a super fun track to run. You don't want to, because it's so high banked.
Yep.
It's a pretty big cliff if you get off the top of a banking in turn 1 and 2 with a sprint car. Like I saw it the first time I ever went there. Tyler Rand, my buddy from up in the Picton area, like I think it was hot laps or his heat, like one right before me, and he just did a digger, got off the top, and I can still hear it, like his foot hit the gas and the RPMs pegged, and gaga, nosedive, and it was an ugly one.
Yeah.
And that sticks out in my head a lot. When you're a sprint car driver, you have to watch that in the heat before you're like, okay,
Yeah.
don't do that. And yeah, but that was bad. That's easy. Hard. Modified just can kind of fall off. Sprint cars seem to fall off a lot harder.
Yeah. So looking at the results, Matthew Bardier ends up with the win on the national series
Panther
opener.
Frank, my boy.
Yeah, of course, right? Lee
Yeah.
Leducier ends up in second.
Ladisser.
See, I always go too French, I think, sometimes with my French pronunciations.
Yeah.
Ladisser. There we go. Matt Billings was third, Adam Turner fourth, and Mike Bowman finishing in fifth to start the national tour event for the Pinty's National Series. I got to make sure there's 3 different sponsors, so I'm trying to make sure I work in which 3 are which. But the Pinty's sponsoring the National Crate Sprint Series for the Action Sprint Tour. So that was the Saturday night. Now let's talk about the Sunday night, which was the Supernaut Truck Shop East Series, and those guys were running at Cornwall.
It was both. That one was a combo.
So what did they?
I think it was an East and a North, and a National. That's why Bowman went. Didn't work out for him, but he went.
Did they count it for both points? I'm looking at it.
I think so. Maybe not. I feel like that's why all those other guys showed up from down here.
I kind of thought it was just one of those things where they were trying to take advantage of the. No, they didn't count it for the national points. I can confirm that. No? I'm looking at it now. Yeah, according to.
Okay, yeah. Probably because they don't run crate sprints all the time.
Although it does say as of July 22nd, so maybe they just didn't update it yet, but I would feel like they would have done the update for now. So I'm pretty sure it just counted for one batch of points.
That's weird.
Well, they were already up there anyways. I think that was kind of the hope for the schedule is if they start the National Series on the East, it'll bring some of the Western Series drivers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Motivate them to go and race an Eastern Series event. So, helpful fill out the fields and stuff. Either way, Ladisser ends up winning that one over Matthew Bardier, Adam Turner, Matt Billings, and Ashton Van Every with a solid run in fifth.
I love that kid. He's really positive.
Yeah.
Whenever he's around, I get a little bit more positive. So I like when he's around. He's a cool kid.
Well, obviously you need to go and hang out.
He always goes hanging around with Stratford. They're always busting each other's balls, and it's really fun to listen
to. Well, obviously he's somebody that you need to spend more time with. I guess I don't know.
Oh, he asked to be on the show at the banquet. We still haven't got him on. We're jerks.
We'll get him.
That's more me. I told him we'll get him.
He's got to win.
I told him we get him in the off season. I lied to him. I said we'd get him in the off season. I totally lied.
Brutal.
It was hopeful. We got you, buddy.
We'll hook you up, Ashton.
Eventually. Win's the best way to do it. We love winners.
We love winners. We are Chip Ganassi of podcasting.
Yeah.
I think that pretty much covers everything that's actually happened, at least over the weekend, which means we should probably jump into the Short Track Super Series, who are north of the border for the first time in a hot minute.
Yeah. So they've come up. I think it's kind of funny how like the Short Track Super Series come up. And then we're going to get into, again, like the Super Dirt Series is coming next week, how they're kind of like on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Almost. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just saying that it's funny. But last night was an awesome race at Granby, Quebec. track had a little bit of bite in her, and Matt Shepard ended up winning it. And then the main thing was our boy Matt Williamson and Mike Mahaney continued their rivalry, and that's what everyone's talking about today. Matt threw rock or a piece of mud at him. I watched him ball it up. Like, I'm like, oh, Matt. Like, at first when I saw him, like, I knew he was going to be mad, but I was hoping he would just stay, like, don't give the keyboard warriors, as he called them at Weedsport, fire. But he sure gave him fire. It's all they were talking about today.
Yep.
But I got to say this about the keyboard warriors he was referring to, I think, is the Hard Clay Observer group on Facebook. If people aren't in there yet, like, I call it the Dirt Modified S posting group.
Yeah.
That's basically a better way to describe it. Like, don't take anything in there seriously, but it's in there for just the pure insanity, really.
They're not even funny, though. Like, you and I are both in a NASCAR posting group.
But some of them are funny, yeah. It's more like hatred and,
funny.
yeah.
They just kind of...
It's pretty bad, but...
They're just trolls.
It's also fun to read. Yeah, it's a troll group. Yeah,
sure.
Perfect way to say it.
It's just a troll group.
Dirt Modified troll group.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a better way to say it. But it's still fun to read sometimes if you're a little bored. And but where I was getting to with that, like when Matt said that at Weedsport Victory Lane, calling out the keyboard warriors, I had never heard of that group ever. And like that group has tripled or quadrupled in member size since then. They're up over 10,000 and stuff. It's like, whoo.
There's a lot of noise.
Last night there was definitely a lot for the keyboard warriors in the Williamson Mahaney incident.
So how do you break that down? Was it just a racing deal? Because obviously they were
definitely just a racing deal.
They were battling for second, and
they have bad blood. You can't, like, if you have bad blood with someone, you kind of got to know they're coming all the way up and stuff like that too, and all that. But those two, they've had bad blood. Like, it started because Mahaney used to drive the Buzz 288, where Matt drives that on the Super DIRTCar series. So that's kind of where it started. And then, they've both been running into each other ever since.
And either way,
both sides, like, it's both ways. There's no doubt about it.
Either way, Matt Shepard keeps winning. I also wanted to.
That's for sure. He just laughs all the way to the bank.
Yeah.
Easy. They call him Easy Money Matt in that group. Easy Money Matt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard to argue with right now. The guy is just the top of his game. I wanted to ask you.
Last year and a bit.
We didn't touch on it. We didn't follow up on it. What did you make of the watermelon smash as Ross Chastain hands off a watermelon to his, car owner for the night, back when they ran that modified race together?
First off, that was a hell of a race, too. That shows how a slick track provides awesome 3-4 lanes, because that was a heck of a race, too, at Utica Rome last week, which Matt Shepard kicked their butt. But Williamson went 12th to 2nd in that one as well. And Chastain did he wasn't that bad. Like, he finished 25th, but he had the car going around a little bit better than I thought. And people were chirping in that group like, oh, he's getting extra laps before the, like, I guarantee you the guy who was starting next to him in the heat was happy he was getting a few extra laps after hot laps from all the other people, because he had never driven one of those cars, and it's easy to plow into the guy next to you, and those things, like, really easy to plow with the front end. That's how you can tell a rookie in a dirt modified. They don't know how to get it set right, and they go plowing through the, like, full lock left. Yeah, it's very easy to do that if you don't enter right. So sure, they were glad he had a couple extra laps, and he didn't do that, and he just rolled around, did a good job. And then the watermelon smash was pretty hilarious.
I thought it was pretty
funny. I didn't think that was coming, but it's perfect.
I kind of figured it might. I mean, that's a signature kind of trademark thing, right? So it makes sense that he would kind of hand it off to the boss for the night.
So what was the top 5 last night? Oh, yeah. Sorry.
I just had it open. Hang on.
But the watermelon, he was just
I was going to say top 5 was Shepard, and then Mahaney ended up finishing 2nd, I believe.
Nope. He ran out of gas.
Oh, that's right.
David Hebert was 2nd, and Michael Perrant. The rest of the top 5 was French. So the French people did a real good job defending their turf, other than Matt Shepard. And like Williamson and Mahaney, they had their troubles. Yeah. Like Mahaney running out of gas after all that was pretty, like, holy drama.
Yeah, like, really?
Like, to the max. Like, that was pretty good for if you like drama last night. There was lots of it.
So Mahaney was running 2nd, made most of the race in 2nd place behind Shepard. And then, like you say,
you could argue he was the fastest. Yeah. Like, coming from midfield, you could argue he was the fastest car.
That's why he burned up so much fuel.
So a little heavier than expected.
David Hebert, Michael Perrant, Matthew Desjardins, and Steve Bernard rounded out your top 5. I believe. I think Steve Bernard's come down to race.
Most of those guys are on the SDS. Bernard's. Not at Merritt. Maybe. I'm sure he's been there.
I'm almost wondering if he came down during the pandemic. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. Maybe I'm thinking of Steve Bernier.
But like, he's on the Super Dirt series, and so is Desjardins. They've been running that stuff. So and Hebert like is one of the goats at Granby, so it's cool to see him have a
Yep.
good run. And literally, so to follow up the Quebec swing for that series, like there's 17 to go right now, and Williamson's leading over Friesen, Rudolph, Mark Johnson, and Mike Mahaney is currently the top 5, and they'll probably be done by the time we're done here. So that's the second part of the
And where
Quebec
are they
swing.
for that?
No drama tonight, Williams, Le RPM
Yes.
Speedway. So like last night was the biggest track in Canada for a dirt track, and tonight we're at one of the smallest. This one's like doesn't look bigger than Cornwall to me. Like it looks really. If it's bigger than Cornwall, it's just a
Yeah.
smidge. It's really small, and Maddie's been leading the whole thing.
And you mentioned it's kind of funny that the Super DIRTCar series is kind of mirroring almost the this short track Super Dirt series calendar because
Well, no, they're both just battling for supremacy, and like,
well,
yeah,
it's like a
we
week
all know
after
that.
that the short track Super Series is here. We got big blocks coming north of the border. Drummondville is going to have 2 race events
Yeah, and they're both coming
next
back. Yeah,
Monday and Tuesday. If you're listening to this, I guess on the Friday, the 28th, that'll be July 31st, 2023 and August 1st, 2023. The Super DIRTCar Series have the King of the North, 2 races at Drummondville, and then the Canadian Classic at Brockville on Wednesday, August 2nd, which I will be in attendance for. And hopefully you can join me for that one as well if we can make it work. But I will definitely be in attendance to cover that one and then hopefully catch up with some of the big block guys as well.
that'd be really sweet. Stewie won't be coming, but like if we could get Matt Shepard, just a few words with him, that'd be
Yeah.
next level.
Yeah. We'll see if we.
Not next level, but
Yeah.
it'd be really cool because we've already had Schrader
Yeah.
and stuff. We had Schrader once.
Yeah.
And Joe Plazik.
Yeah. We've had a lot of legends on the show.
Lots of people. I know. We've been killing it.
My dad is determined for us to somehow interview Tony Stewart. I don't know how it's going to happen, but
that's you'd have to. We could.
That'd be a lot of PR that we'd have to jump through.
Let's go for Stuart Friesen first.
Before Tony Stewart.
Oh, that controversy. Oh, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Controversy there. Not to get like a year apart.
Right?
Oh, man. Yeah.
So,
okay. Get that
out. All right. We'll figure that out. Anyways, we hope to see you there and hope if you're thinking about making the trek up to watch the big blocks north of the border, maybe let us know if you're going to be there and we can hook you up. Maybe bring some stickers along the way as well. Yeah, just excited to get covering a big block race. And if you're local to the Niagara region where we are and you don't want to make the long trek, don't worry. Tuesday, August 22nd in Ransomville, the big blocks will be back. And that's
that
one we are both going to 100%. So looking forward to that event.
And I think Scotty and Chris are coming. Or no, maybe Scotty can't come. Chris is going from work.
Nice.
Machinist guy. So, yeah, probably more of us.
That'll be a blast.
That'll be a good one. It's one of my favorite places to watch the big blocks.
It's a good spot for it, for sure. So I'm looking forward to getting back to Ransomville for that one. And we mentioned briefly Stuart Friesen. He made a big announcement this week on our friends over at the GeForce Live Race Rivals chat. He's coming back to Canada to race in the Pinty Series on dirt this coming August.
Yep. I was wondering when they were going to, like, literally crossed my mind this past week. I'm like, I wonder if they're ever going to announce people coming up. I just realized that they hadn't announced it yet. And then sure enough, Clint does and Adam do a Monday show instead of the regular Thursday. And sure enough, there it was. Stuart Friesen's coming up to drive a Glenn Steyer's cast car this year. Sorry, NASCAR Pinty Series. Old habits die hard. Old habits die hard. And then, yeah, so that's different because last year he's on the Steckley team, which in my opinion is the GOAT team on the cast car right now. But yeah, so he's got to go Glenn Steyer's, who's prepared by Whitey right now, the WMI, Dave White. So he's going to be running out of that stable. And then the real big news for me, because I didn't expect this one really, is Jay-Z, former Canadian Sprint Car National winner. JZF now, sorry. Jessica Zemkin Friesen. She's always Jessica Zemkin to me. Because, yeah, that's how I grew up racing against her. But former Canadian Nationals winner. And this is her first sprint car start in like 6 years. That's why it's such a big deal. Like she hasn't done it since she hasn't raced a sprint car since after their son and Parker was born.
So it's going to be a good homecoming for both of them, and it'll be a great event for Stewie to be back at. He almost won the thing last year. I think we're going to ramp up with a little extra coverage of that one, teeing it up the week before or 2 weeks before. I'm going to see if I can't make some calls out to some friends that I've got in the Pinty's world to come on the
That'd
show
be
and
fun.
talk about dirt life and talk about the Pinty series as well. So we'll see what we can put together for that one.
The other fun thing about Stewart racing against his wife Jessica is Stewart's going to be racing in the sprint car as well, but he's going to be driving for Glenn Steyer's Racing, but Jessica's going to be driving for Hills
Ooh,
Racing, so they're not going to be teammates. They're yeah, it'll be a fun little
yeah,
rivalry to
battle for
watch.
supremacy.
And they're both like, yeah, they ain't going to care who each other are. I can guarantee you that
Yeah,
it's going to be good.
and
Like they'd both slide each other for a win if they
and
had to.
correct me if I'm wrong. That means that
And Jessica or Stewie even chirped like how he knows her
oh really?
intricacies and
Eh?
stuff. He was chirping on the show a little bit. He's like, I know her really. I know what she's gonna do and stuff like that.
I
So
was
that
gonna
was
say,
kind of
will
funny.
he have one of those new GSR chassis? You think?
Oh
Right?
yeah, for sure. Because he talked about how it was so cool because him and Brett are such good
Nice.
buds. Long time. So he told, yeah, Brett told that story last week on the pod about wrecking
Yep.
Stuart Friesen's Harry Macy ride at the
Yep.
indoors. So yeah, they go
Yes,
back
they
a
do.
while.
So that'll be fun to see and
Yeah,
hear, check out. So
that's super cool.
I'm looking forward to that one. I love the Pinty series. I love the fact that they're on dirt, and I'm excited to see what the show is going to offer in the second year of it. So we should probably get into some of the sprint car silly season news before we grab Luke Carleton. Um, Want to ask what your thoughts are, what some of the rumors are that are starting to pop out, and some of the posts that you've seen on social media.
Not even rumors, just all the stuff that's already happened. Like this season's been crazy for it already. Like it started off with like Buddy Kofoid was running that number 11 car, Crouch Motorsports, and you thought he was killing the world. He won an outlaw show with it, and they were doing awesome. Then they left that, and he ended up at Roth Motorsports. That's what started it. But the main stuff like this weekend was Lance DeWeese, the dream team, Kreitz Motorsports. So Davey Brown, legendary crew chief, 88 years old, been going since the 50s, has won a race every year since then, multiple. And so he's one of the biggest crew chiefs of all time. And then Don Kreitz, who has been a driver in that car, he owns it, and he drove it for the longest time, has Williams Grove National Open wins, won the Kings Royal out of Dora, tons of wins for him as well. And then, yeah, they hired Lance DeWeese in 2016, and they've literally coined it the dream team once they started with Lance, and they were just killing it with wins, and they won something like 72 or one features in almost 300 starts, so it's like a 25% winning. So to see them break up is insane. Just shows how racing is so cutthroat. And that one wasn't like a mutual agreement. That was like a Donnie called them Sunday and be like, sorry, Lance, it's not working out and stuff like that. Like they definitely, because I hate that mutually parted ways thing because
Yeah,
that's
there's
always
always somebody
BS.
who wanted
I
it
hate
done
like this
more
was
than the
literally
others.
we let him go,
Yeah,
like a job, kind
exactly.
of thing. I hate
Yeah.
that mutually parted. Like I
You don't have
guarantee
to
it
go
was
home,
mutual.
but you can't
Very
stay here.
rarely. Correct. Yeah. Like there's another one. Hunter Schurenberg, like his brother-in-law is a crew chief of the car he got fired from earlier, and like he got sewered. And then Buddy Kofoid ran it for like a week. There's like yeah. But then the other one, besides so after the dream team breaks up, 69K. So it's like who's gonna fill that seat? It's still not filled. But then so Shark Racing, they just won the million last week with Logan Schuhart, and then this week their other driver doesn't run Saturday at Williams Grove and says he's gonna take a break from racing. So like craziness on that one for Jacob Allen leaving the Shark Racing team, which is father Bobby Allen owns, and yeah, and then he put that note up today, and it's hard not to feel that note as a racer, and like because he says it's just about the tolls it puts on. I can't imagine like I'm 12 races in this season, and I'm already like mentally wore out and stuff like that, and it's that time of year where it's getting not you're not as eager at the beginning of the year unless you're winning every night kind of stuff. It's just harder to keep going, and that's after 12 nights. So I can imagine all those times
Mm-hmm.
on the road and stuff, and how extra
Yeah,
hard
if you
that
haven't
is.
seen it,
But
it's
yeah,
up
he's
on
just
social
gonna
media for you to check
yeah.
out. Kind of just goes into the details of
It's a good
it.
note. Just
It's a really revealing look.
a lot of the fans don't realize how they just think we show up and drive a
Exactly.
lot of them, and they don't like. It's so much
It's
more
so
than that.
revealing. It
It's
it, it
hard.
really shows, how much of your
Only
time,
one
how
winner in
much of
racing.
your your soul that you have to put into your craft to be a great sprint car driver, a great race car driver in general. And it really,
In general,
it's
any
so tough
class.
on you guys. I can't imagine. Like I'm in a go-kart season that's been kind of up and down because of, paving, and there's been trophy race events that have kind of upset things. So it's like, what I signed up for was every other week, and then I think I've raced every 3 weeks when you actually add it up, or however it worked out. But even that's been a grind for me, and that's just an arrive and drive rookie series. That's
Yeah,
not. I don't have to do any work on the car. I don't have to prepare things. I don't have to travel really, besides getting to Hamilton for it. I can only imagine what you guys have to go through to get out to a racetrack every single week. And that's kind of why I wanted to ask you, in the future, do you see the idea of weekly racing going away because it just takes so much of a toll on these guys?
Uh, I don't see weekly racing going away. It could happen. I'm not saying it couldn't happen. I'm seeing more like just a lot more tracks start dying off, just like we touched on those other three. I think just
Hmm.
last week was it? But anyway, yeah, it's just can't ignore the trends, and there's definitely more closing
Yeah,
than opening.
yeah.
That's a fact. So I think more of that, and maybe like weekly racing, maybe like other tracks can gain cars at some point, and I can't see racing in 50. I don't know. Like eventually our party's going to be over. I don't know. I
I
could be
hope you're
wrong.
wrong,
Just how come? I
at
hope I'm
least for
wrong
my
too, but
lifetime.
like it's going to turn into like a more
Yeah,
elitist thing.
yeah. It already has in a lot of ways, right? So it's
Yeah, it's getting harder for us little guys. I can promise you that.
yeah.
Way
Unless
harder.
we start running an enduro class, that seems to be the cheapest thing you can get into these days, right?
Yeah,
So even go karting is insanely expensive, right? So yeah, you
even
can
that's
arguably
insane.
spend more money on a go kart program than you
200
can on a mod
or
light.
$2,500
Yeah,
entire prep
it's
equipment.
crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Um, let's end on a positive note, though. You have a story about Greg Wilson that you want to share. That
Yeah.
this is one that should grab headlines, but really hasn't at this point.
Yeah. So Greg Wilson is a 410 sprint car driver. He's from the Ohio. I forget which town specifically. But anyway, he's from Ohio. He's been a former All-Star sprint car champion. You could say he's even got an outlaw win at Eldora, and I'm not sure of other ones, but I know that there was a big one at Eldora not that long ago, like 2016-ish. Anyway, so this guy is pretty good, but he's been struggling lately, no doubt about that. Like he's the kind of guy I watch when I watch the streams of he's traveling all over the place with the All Stars, and some nights he's just getting his teeth kicked in, and like I just drive up the road 45 minutes to get my teeth kicked in sometimes, and I know how much that sucks. So I can't imagine how towing all over the place and having that happen. But anyway, so what happened Saturday? He was racing Saturday night. They're out like in an Iowa type swing. They're racing tonight somewhere out there. Anyway, he gets in a car crash. Someone rammed, like he was gonna like hit them head on or something like that. Anyway, they get in a wreck, and he avoids the head-on collision, but the other car still hits the rig, and like a person ends up ejected. So I remember reading the post, like he posted on Twitter, how he wasn't gonna be able to race. So I remember seeing that. So I never followed up on that or anything, right? But then the next morning, I saw someone post, like one singular person post on Twitter about this story in his interview, and like how all that, like he told the story about like that happened, and then he was sitting with his family saying, "I can't race tonight. There's no way," because he saw the person get ejected and taken away in the ambulance and all that stuff. So they were just gonna skip, and then so they were just sitting there at the crash scene, I guess, in the toter home, and then the cops ended up coming back and told them thank you for your evasive actions and all that stuff, and they saved the person's life. The evasive actions with the hauler, the way they ended up hitting was probably better for them, and they had actually walked out of the hospital that day. Yeah, so ejected from the car and then ended up walking out of the hospital with just minor injuries. So at that point, he just said, F it, we're going racing. And they went to the track, and he had his best run of the year, I'm pretty sure. Finished third with the All Stars, and yeah, like broke down victory lane. And
Yeah,
crazy story. And yeah, no one shared that. Everyone loves throwing when people throw mud and do stupid stuff, but no one wants to share that kind of stuff. So
exactly.
I'd share
It's
it.
always the best stories in racing and just in general that gets swept under the rug. So we're glad that you could share that one, Travis, with everybody from the Southern Ontario Dirt Show crew here. And also, we're going to get to another great story in Luke Carleton, who's going to join the show coming up next. The Southern Ontario Dirt Show is brought to you by Ohsweken Speedway, Southern Ontario's home for Friday night excitement. For over 25 years, Ohsweken Speedway has promoted and played host to sprint car racing with a new season of family-friendly events on the horizon and set to begin May 19th. Catch our own Travis Cunningham as he races weekly in the 360 division each Friday night in pursuit of a season-long championship. The Friday night lineups are rounded out by crate sprints, thunder stocks, and mini stock divisions as well. In addition to weekly racing, Ohsweken Speedway will also hold several marquee events for the Southern Ontario Sprints, the Action Sprint Tour in their West Series and National Series, as well as a visit from Canada's premier stock car series, the NASCAR Pinty Series on August 14th and 15th for their only stop on dirt. Mark your calendars as the 3/8 mile dirt track located in Ohsweken, Ontario welcomes drivers from across the country and beyond for the 19th running of the Canadian Sprint Car Nationals, which is scheduled for September 16th. To keep up to date with the latest news from the track, be sure to find them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. For track information on policies, admissions, directions, and more, be sure to visit ohswekenspeedway.ca. That's OHSWEKEN Speedway.ca. Ohsweken Speedway, your home for Friday night excitement. The Southern Ontario Dirt Show is brought to you by Bicknell Racing Products. The last 40 years plus have seen Bicknell Racing Products grow to be an industry leader for racers and enthusiasts alike. Their St. Catharines location is home to 20,000 square feet of manufacturing and retail space, with a second store in Niagara Falls, New York, and a dealer network that continues to grow day by day to serve Southern Ontario, Western New York, and beyond. Bicknell Racing Products distributes Hoosier tires for much of Eastern Canada, New York, and even parts of Pennsylvania. BRP has everything you could need to keep your car performing at its peak, with genuine parts from the manufacturer. They even have a technical support line committed to helping you with the most up-to-date information and feedback from racers and crew chiefs. Have you ever thought about a career in the automotive or racing industry? Now is your chance to take the leap with Bicknell Racing Products. They are looking for CNC machine operators, welders, and more to join their team this season. Please send all resumes to Dana Curving at BicknellRacingProducts.com. That's DANACURVIN at BicknellRacingProducts.com. For further information on Bicknell Racing Products and to find a dealer near you, visit BRP online at www.BicknellRacingProducts.com or on Facebook or at twitter.com/BicknellRacing. And our guest this week on the Southern Ontario Dirt Show, it is fresh from Victory Lane at Saturday night at Merrittville Speedway, Luke Carleton joining the show. Luke, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great. Everything's a little bit better this week after our win.
Coffee tasting a little better this week?
Absolutely everything.
Everything just tasting a little better?
Everything. Yeah, that's, I guess, we're all striving to try to win, and mine don't come very often, so when they do, we enjoy it for sure.
Yeah. So this was let's make sure I got the numbers right from earlier in the show. First modified feature win in 30 years and first feature win overall in over 10. Did I have that right?
10 years, yeah. My last feature win was in a crate late model at State Line Speedway in June of 2013, and then my one and only other modified win was June of 1993 at Merrittville Speedway.
Late model. There was a sportsman one in there too. I can remember that at Merrittville for sure.
I got.
There's got to be a few of those,
Yeah,
right?
I got some. I don't know how many wins I actually got, but it's not a lot. But I think I probably got about 10 or 12 sportsman wins that are in between.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I totally forgot about that late model one.
Yeah.
Because I thought your sportsman one would have been the last one, but then late model at State Line.
Yeah, I think State Line, and I think the my last sportsman win would have been 2010. I think I got one at Humberstone and one at Merrittville that year. Yeah.
Yeah. That rings
Nice.
a bell.
Well, walk us back to kind of the very beginning, because you kind of have like one of those famous family names. When you think about racing locally here in Southern Ontario, the Carleton boys, like that's just one of those names that you expect to see at a racetrack on any given night,
And
right?
the old man.
So talk to us about where your journey in racing started.
Well, yeah, as Travis said, my father raced, and all of his buddies did too. And there were a group of Hamilton boys who would come down to Merrittville, Humberstone. They used to race at Speedway Park. We grew up right in that backyard watching races there as kids and all that. And so I think Dad last raced in about 1975, and then by 1979, I bought my first race car. It was an old coach, full leaf springs in the rear, cross leaf in the front, inline 6-cylinder. That's the sportsman cars were inline 6-cylinders back then, and I paid a whole $300 for that car.
Amazing.
I remember the look on Bobby St. Ammon's face when I rolled that car up to the pit gate, and he really didn't want to let me go out because it really was a safety issue. But he let me go out anyways, and we raced it for. And I ended up selling it, and we got into some better equipment after that.
So that was like limited sportsman.
Yeah.
Or something, whatever they call that class?
Yeah, well, that was like they used to be the inline 6-cylinders and lead.
Yeah.
Rome back then. He was the guy who was the big engine builder for us. I remember Fred buying a motor from him, and we raced that for, I guess it was a few years. Like Harold Sonnenberg, he was pretty much the guy who was doing the winning back then when we first started, and him and Bruce Parks and Dougie Freilich and guys like that. And basically, the cars back then in the sportsman class, they were hand-me-downs from the modifieds, and they were all full leaf springs and cross leafs in the front. And then if they got fancy, they went to coil over in the front. But the modifieds then were starting to get into torsion bar and coils in the front, and some of them were the Tobiases with all torsion bars. And so we really were there at the beginning of leaving from the leaf spring days and getting into what we pretty much are seeing today. You know what I mean?
Yeah, coils and
Yeah.
torsions. Yeah. So that was 79, you're saying? So, like, what was your next car after that one?
I had I remember we bought a car from the Willards. It was actually a converted street stock. Like, it was an independent front end, and of course then there was no rule about straight axle at the time and all that. And I raced that for a couple of years, and really when I first started, like, going through quite a few years, I would race for 2 years, and then I would be a crew guy for either Fred or a friend of mine or whoever. You know, I crewed for Martin Pohill for a little bit, and actually Boyd McTavish at one time. And but so, like I said, I would race probably 2 or 3 years and then take a year or two off. And but yeah, that car. And then I've actually had quite a few cars, and
Yeah, I was just thinking
we'd
that.
always
Yeah.
end up selling them off, and then sitting out, and then buying, and then of course getting itchy to go racing again, and then you buy something up again.
So, what was your first win?
My first win was actually the modified win. And
Tell us that whole night, because I want to hear that whole
well,
night. Like, just tell us about it.
we bought that car from Jimmy Chester. I think we paid $3,000 for that car, and it was a super light Molly car, and it had a sprint car type live rear end in it, and it was just a really good car. And that night, I think I started near the front. I don't know if I was on the front or not, and I got the lead relatively early, and I was just hammering the throttle, getting around. And of course, Pete Bicknell ends up chasing me down to the wire, and he ends up behind me, and I'm just running all over the track. And I don't know that I'm blocking, but I'm blocking, and all that. And so we ended up with the win, and that was the my first win. And then I think I raced modified for maybe 2 or 3 years after that, but then I ended up going sportsman racing, and I pretty much raced sportsman up until I went back modified last year.
Yeah.
So talk to us about the decision to go into the sportsman class. What drew you to it? Was it a financial decision? Was it something else that brought you back into the sportsman?
Well, it really was about the financial end of it, and uh, you could do a little bit better with the sportsman class. Back then, they had, at one point when we had gone from the inline six cylinders to the V8s, they were basically stock, and then they grew into your bow tie head type stuff and all that. But they were relatively a little more affordable than what we were doing in the modifieds at the time. And so then we got into that, and then of course when the crates came along, that made a lot of sense for sportsman division. And and then I've just always had a fascination for late models. I just always liked the looks of the cars, the way they drive, and all that. And so that's Lan and I decided, well, let's go create late model racing. And so then I ended up piecing together a car, and that's the 604 crate motor. And back then they were actually fairly affordable. They've more than doubled in price since then. But and then we got to go to we like going on road trips too. That's something that we've always enjoyed doing. And so we got to go to like, if a regular weekend, you could go to State Line Speedway, you could go to McKean, and then there'd be trips to Sharon. Actually, we went to twice, but it rained out both times. I think I got one set of hot there,
Oh.
but I raced at Lernerville, and then there's a couple other tracks I can't remember the names of it, but we got to go to different places and all that. And of course, Humberstone was racing the cars on a fairly regular basis, but it was a small car count. At one point, there was only the three of us there: me, Jordan, and his dad. and then it kind of grew from there. When Pinty came along and the other guys and all that, and actually ended up with a pretty decent group of cars there. Um, but I did that for, I guess, about 4 or 5 years. And the one thing you learn about late models is with the body panels on the outside instead of on the inside of the crash guards, you need a full time crew guy just for body alone, because you're going to tear them up. And it's even with the modifieds and with the crash guards on the outside, it's still a lot of work, but never mind the other way around. So, but it was fun. It was a good experience and we enjoyed it. And like I say, we got to go travel around different places and all that. And so I did get that one win at State Line. I also won at Humberstone a couple of races with my sports or the crate late model there too.
Yeah, I was there for one of those. Wouldn't like you say about the late models being more work? That's all I see when I look at those cars. Like I love them and they're cool cars too. Like wouldn't like tearing like a front end out, like tearing a whole right front assembly off, be way harder than changing a front
Yeah,
axle? Obviously.
absolutely. It's just like the nose, just trying to
Yeah.
keep the noses on them. It was a tough. And, of course, they'd always try to use lighter weight materials and all that. So at least with with our modifieds with our little crash guard, if we touch bumpers or whatever, you're not wiping out the front end, you're not wiping off the nose piece or anything like that. But the late models, you really are, and it's a tough deal. And I don't know if you've ever been to State Line or not, but it's a little bull ring and
Oh
very
yeah.
tight racing.
Yeah.
And
I call it dirt flam
yeah,
ride.
yeah,
It's pretty
that
similar.
sounds about right. Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, so it was a good experience, and I just like I say, I've always had a fascination. I still do. I love watching the supers and all that, but they are a lot of work for sure.
Eh,
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
now you found yourself back in a
You up?
modified, and you're one of the few drivers left in the field right now running the open motor. So, talk to us about that decision for you and your experience this season thus far with the open motor, trying to go up against the W16s.
Yeah, I think overall, I really do believe that it's kind of on an equal basis. I think the W's with the sail panels and then versus the opens without that. I think they're pretty equal in cars, and it really is. If your car's working good that night, and if you're driving it right, then I think you're going to have that advantage that way. Maybe when the track is slickened off and you want to drive your car in harder with the sail panels, I think that might be where there's an advantage there. But these cars nowadays, the way that we're getting them to work and the way that you drive them, there's really no more of that easy in, hard out kind of mentality. It's drive the car in as hard as you can and just let it float and let it drive up to the top and keep the momentum up. And when you get the car working on those short lengths, um, I suppose a sail panel in that aspect would work maybe better. But like I say, I think you can get the cars, even with the open motors without the sail panels, you can get them working pretty good. So I don't think I'm at a disadvantage at all. And I think actually as the tracks get tackier, and they usually do, they cultivate the tracks as we get into August and they start to get a little bit better. Um, I think an open motor is going to be better than the Wagner. Um, Now where these motors came from, they're Dennis Jankola, who's been in racing his whole life. He had put together a motor that was in Ryan Ferry's car last year. Ryan used it when he was racing modified, and then Ryan decided that he was going to quit racing, but he's got his stuff for sale. But you see him out there; he's racing his Sportsman again and that. But I went to Dennis and asked him if he was interested in putting the motor in my car, and he said sure. And so we just hooked up that way, and that allowed me to actually go and buy better equipment than what I had. And so I think our whole program's better. Not that we got a lot of money in it or anything like that, but it's a lot better. And then Dennis has actually got a second motor that's we could probably put it in this week, but I told him I'd like to hold off until the following week because that timeline is going to work out better. And I think this next one is going to be even a better motor. The one that we got in the car right now, it works great. If as long as I don't put too much gear in it, it pulls along and everything works good. And I don't think that whole conversation about opens versus the Wagner and the sail panels is kind of a fair conversation with people. I see a lot of guys running off and they're buying the Wagners and they're putting the sail panels on, and that motor from an affordability price is actually the better choice. But to actually think that it's an advantage over the opens. I don't really agree with that or think that's the way it is.
Yeah, that's what I say. Because earlier when we recorded our part that we do like the open talk before, like I said the same thing. I think it's pretty equal, and I referenced like Schrader coming up runs those cars once a year, and he finished 5th this year in Pete's car. And then I was just making jokes like I was making jokes at work like, "Hey, Luke won with a spec motor. Does everyone has to switch back to specs this week or what?"
I I know, and there's going to be nights specs aren't going to be great, and then there's going to be nights that the Wagners are going to be.
Have you run both this year or just the
No,
spec?
I actually I still have my Wagner, and I had it in for the practice session because the open wasn't ready, and it was good. I never put sail panels on, and it was funny because we started getting into that conversation. I was out there turning some really good lap times. I think we were top 2 or 3 out of all the cars that were there, and everybody was saying to me, they're going, "Wow, that open motor is really good." I said, "It's not. That's the Wagner without the sail pan going really good, and so it just depends on how your cars are hooked up and how you're driving your car, but I still have that motor sitting on the shop floor. If I hopefully will never need to use it, but it's there for that purpose in case we do. So
So is Dennis putting the motors together himself,
Dennis is
or
putting
what's the
together
deal?
himself. He's
So it's more of a low budget spec motor.
yeah.
Like it ain't
This
no.
this this one that is in the car, it's used pieces that he had, and he put it together. It's an older set of the Brodex heads and all that, but the new one, he's put together new parts, and he spent some good money on it.
Yeah, those. Yeah, yeah.
And so I think it's going to be a nice piece, and he's a little bit more cam, a little bit more rocker, and I think he's going to try to get it to breathe a little better and all that, and so it'll be interesting. And he's Dennis started. He bought out a machine shop for engine building a while ago because he just wanted to get a little change in what he was doing for earning a living and all that, and of course, being a racer, it was one of his goals to build an engine to try to go out and win races. And I'm glad I was able to get him that win for him. I went and talked to him the other day, and he's just really, really happy about that. And good for him. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, that's a cool
yeah,
story. I love that part. I thought it was one of the ERD retreads. I thought something you had that. I didn't realize you had Dennis's
no,
motor. That's cool.
it's just his piece that he put together with stuff he had there in the shop, and it's working out great. And it really pulls. It's a great motor when you take the gear out of it, and it just pulls along. But
Using the torque.
yeah, yeah, using the torque, and I think when the tracks get slick and you're pulling that gear out, it just seems to be even better. So I hope this next one is working out just as well. So
Yeah, Merrittville is more of a torque track than a horsepower
I
track.
think I think
People need to
so
remember
too.
that.
Is it?
Thousand
And I
percent.
think the way the car, and just like the way the cars are, the way we got them handling, and the left sides are all jacked up, and we're trying to get those dirt rods pointed up in the air and all that, and then you keep your momentum up. And I think a motor like that, where you just sort of got the gear out of it, and you're just keeping your momentum going, I think it works well for that. So
So I
Yeah.
wanted to ask about what's on the side of your race car, the Oldest Dirt YouTube racing channel. If anybody hasn't checked this out yet, it's a great watch. It's a great behind the scenes look of what it's like to be in the dirt world and be a driver working on race cars. Just talk to us about where that came from and how things are going with the Oldest Dirt channel.
yeah, that originally started with my nephew Richie and Freddie. I think a couple, or Fred, a couple years ago. It was race, wrench, repeat, and uh, they were doing their best to try to develop that channel, and for the reasons that most people are doing, you're just trying to see if you can develop something that people will be interested in. So maybe it'll create some value and get you some support you need for when you're going racing and all that. But it kind of faded on them. It's a lot of work for the editing and all that stuff. And so then this winter, when I got talking to my niece Marlena, who's my crew chief and helps me out a lot, we got talking about it, and said we should revive it and get it going again and just start recording ourselves. And so then we decided, well, let's change the name of it. And so I told her, I said, well, everybody keeps telling Fred and I that we're old as dirt. So why not, use that. And so we looked it up, and sure enough, it was available. So it's really just a runoff of what them guys were doing. And so we do our best trying to record everything that we do. And, you just try to be as real as you possibly can. You know what I mean? Just, you try to get rid of that part about that, any kind of acting or anything like that. We're just trying to be ourselves, and show people the garage work and all the other stuff that it takes. And but it is a big job, and Marlena does all the edit and all that stuff. And I've already told her if it gets to be too much, I said I guess there's services that you can buy to do the edit and all that stuff that we could look into that. But the main thing that we understand is just keep putting out content.
Yeah.
They say just keep doing that every week, and that eventually it should grow. And it might take a long time. It might never happen, but it might take a couple years or longer or whatever. But we're just trying to develop something that I don't know if for Fred and myself, if you benefit from a like a monetary manner from it or not. But um, we have our people in my nephews and my grandnephews and nieces and all that. I don't know how much interest they have in racing themselves and all that, but if we were able to develop something that would help to pay for racing, which obviously Travis is just crazy, the costs going the way they're going and all that. That
Yep.
maybe if we can get some of the 8 billion people on planet Earth to get interested in what we're doing, then maybe it works out for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've definitely watched some of it. One of the ones I was watching, like you were at Ransomville Friday, and like you had a bad night. You had to fix stuff Saturday
Yeah.
morning, and then you ended up winning. So what'd you have to fix?
I tore the front end out of it, and I didn't realize it till late in the day that the I had bent the right rear hub, and the threads on the tube were pretty mangled up. And once we actually pulled the hub off, we couldn't really get the thread back on the nut back on the thread on the tube. And so Fred ends up phoning Pete, and Pete's actually in bed. He actually goes to the shop, grabs the tube and the bell because it's that easy rear end, the DMI rear end for the easy change in the tube, and he drops it off at the house. And you couldn't ask him to do much more than that, right? And so then I actually at that point managed to get that together, so we just kept that with us. I changed that this week, but so I did enough damage. To be honest with you, that happened so quick. I just think that I drove down into the corner. I drove in low, and at Ransomville, you're just so wide open there. And I just remember having my foot to the floor, and I think, oh, it's going to turn. And well, it did, but not till it was too late. And that was right at the very end of the cement wall. And they got a big tractor tire there, and I caught that with the crash guard, and it just spun me in a 360. And then the front end came around, smashed, and that's what wrecked the front end. But yeah, it was pretty disappointing. I was looking to have a good night there. We'd actually run a couple nights of pretty good racing there, and so that was pretty disappointing that happened. And then Saturday morning, when I'm looking at the car, I'm thinking, well, crash guards ripped off of it, and we're welding pockets and straightening them out and all that stuff. I thought, well, if we get it back together, you want to get there to get your points in and your handicap, so that you don't end up with a race win, and then because basically then your handicapping for the rest of the year is going to be pretty messed up. But
Yep.
so that was my mindset, just going to the track and getting that done. And it ends up that we go out in the hot laps and the car was fine, and then we finished decent in our heat. And then by the time the feature was ready to roll, I'm like, okay, no, this thing's fine. Let's race. And so I grabbed the lead early, and then we're just able to hang on to it.
And it
Yeah.
was an extra
Wicked.
special one on Saturday night too, racing with the family and friends of first responder Jerry Saxton in the crowd as well. And you and Freddie both have his badge on the race car and have had it all season long. So just talk to us about the relationship with Jerry, why you're racing for him, and how special it was to get that done for everybody in the crowd.
Yeah, Jerry Saxon is the brother of my brother-in-law, and I actually worked with Jerry, uh, some 30 years ago at TRW. He used to work there, and then when he became a fireman and he left there, but just a super guy. And unfortunately, he passed away, and we we decided to put his name and his badge number on our cars to honor him, and it meant a lot to my brother-in-law Billy and all their family, and then Donnie and Lorraine, when Fred asked them if we could put on something for first responders, all first responders, and then especially with Jerry, and they were on board with that, and that's fantastic. I can't thank Donnie and Lorraine enough for doing that. And I got to tell you, it was pretty nerve wracking and everybody was having a blast. I think there was like 40 or 50 of them in the stands there, and they were having such a good time. And uh, a lot of them had never been to the races before, and so they were actually really enjoying it. And so we really were just thinking about that we were going to get that group photo after the heat races there. You're thinking, well, that's probably going to be it, right? And then so I'm out there and I'm winning the race, and I'm actually, as I'm driving around, it dawns on me that, oh crap, you could win this race that we're trying to honor the first responders and especially Jerry. And I thought, man, that's a lot of pressure. And then we ended up pulling it off, and then they all come out, and so then we got to come out for the second time, and then afterwards over in the pits, and everybody was having a good time, and it was just a really good, like, it was more of a celebration of life for Jerry, you know what I mean, and it was just a really good time. Yeah.
Man, what a time to get your first win in 10
Well,
years.
yeah, that's when you think about the whole thing, we get the monkey off our bat for winning a race and doing what we're all, the reason we all go racing is to try to win, and then we're honoring a good man in Jerry, and so it's just a good night all the way around. You know?
Yeah. All right. I thought of this one earlier because this is episode 61 of our podcast. So that's Driving Ivan Little. I know your brother Fred goes to see him sometimes still and stuff like that. I don't know if you do or not, but do you have a wicked Driving Ivan story, or just tell us about him, how he
About
was?
Ivan, Ivan was. I haven't
Yeah.
actually seen Ivan myself in a long time. Fred does stop by and talk to Ivan quite often and all that. I think the last time I seen Ivan, uh, it was like Super Dirt Week a few years ago. He was at Brewerton and all that with Dougie Gordon, and I chatted with him a little bit. But we used to have quite a bit of fun with back in the days at the old Henley Hotel with Ivan and Rhubarb and his crew and all that. And I'm not going to get into a lot of detail on that, but they're
No, I
just a
know.
good group of guys, and we always had a lot of fun. And uh, Ivan, of course, when he raced, was always about trying to win, and track champ and all that stuff. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, we had a really good time with Ivan back it would be in the early '80s, basically, when we were hanging out. Fred used to crew for him, and uh, yeah,
Yeah.
so it was always a good time.
Thought so. And then that leads into my next question. You said you love traveling. What was your favorite racing trip?
Favorite racing trip? I don't know. I guess we've been up to Cornwall. We've been to Brighton. Actually, because of COVID, we did a lot of the traveling up to our Canadian tracks in the north. But prior to that, I was always going into the New York State tracks and all that. But I always really like going to Outlaw Speedway. Um, that place reminds me a lot of Merrittville and Humberstone. So whenever I went there, I haven't won a race there, but I've always run well there, and just a really good group of people there too. And we always had fun. We actually went there when the Hogue family owned it, and so I've been there quite a bit, and just a lot of fun. And that's Alana and I. We just always enjoyed putting our. That's why we bought our motor home, and we just would put the race car in the back of our open trailer, and we'd go tow wherever, and then just go and do our best to compete and all that. But yeah, Outlaw was always a fun place to go to, and I'd like to get back there. But I guess the cars are running there. They're different, and they're the sail panel cars with the SDS type motors and
Yeah.
American race. Yeah,
American racers.
actually,
Yep.
when I remember going there with my sportsman car with my Hoosiers and steel wheels, and they had a challenge against their sportsman. I think they had sail panels at the time, but they had aluminum wheels in their American racers. And I remember going there and finish. I think I finished third that one race, and that was in the first when they started with the crate motors back in 2010, 2011. Them guys had open motors, and me and a few other guys, we had our steel wheel crate Hoosiers on, and everybody, you can't go down there and compete with them. And I remember I finished third that one race there. So yeah, a fun place to go to for sure.
Oh, that just reminded me of another story a Fred tells me about you about like your sprint car. Didn't you build a cheap sprint car for a
I
minute?
did, yeah, about
Yeah,
that long, and I raced one sprint car race, and it's funny that now when you look at the the 602s in the sprint cars and all that, and that's essentially what I guess it was. Just nobody was really ready for it, thinking about it, and we were still open motors in the sportsman class, and but it had gotten to such an expense that we were right at the edge of getting to the crates, and so my suggestion to guys, I was saying, like when you sort of look at a sprint car, I think they're a more affordable car than a modified. But I was thinking about like a stock type crate version motor in the car. So we actually ripped the motor out of I bought a sprint car because I had a steelhead open sportsman motor that I was going to put in. I think it was the SOS who was racing up at Ohsweken at the time, and I planned on going
yeah.
racing with them. And but first, we tore this stock motor out of a Camaro, and I put it in the car, and I go to Humberstone, and I do some practice laps and all that. And we talk to people, and they, well, we do this, and maybe this is more affordable. And everybody, that's dumb. And then, so then I just left it at that, and I put the motor in the car. I went to the season ending. It was probably one of the first races they had
I think
in September. The race they have at
it was called the Sprint Car Championships
yeah,
back
I
then.
think
Right? Yeah,
first
Pre-nationals.
one
it was.
I raced in,
Yeah,
and I remember I, I finished second or third in my heat, and I actually got into a dash. And then in the feature, I forget where I started, but I was booting around about 5 or 6 laps, and I ended up losing the motor. I blew up the motor, and so then I just decided, well, I can't afford the sprint car type engine. So then I just decided to sell the car, and I went back to sportsman racing. But that was probably about God, or early.
mid 2000s or
Yeah,
something.
I think it was earlier.
Early
Yeah, it was probably
2000s.
about '05 or somewhere around then that we did
Yeah,
that, right? And then now all these years later, everybody said, well, let's put a 602 in a sprint car, and maybe we can create a sportsman type division. And I'm glad they did it because man, look at it. Hey, that's fantastic. What's going on up there?
yeah, it's
Yeah,
definitely
for
blowing
sure.
up. But yeah, you can almost say Luke Carleton started.
Well, I'll take anybody remembers. That's the problem.
Yeah, because Fred has told Clint that story. There's
Oh,
no
no
doubt.
doubt he has.
He's told me that
Yeah,
story.
probably told Clint that story about 50 times, and he forgets every.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome. Well, we'll get you out of here on this one, Luke. We really appreciate you taking the time. This is kind of the final question we ask everybody who comes on the show. And it's I'm going to give you one race car, one racetrack to race at for the rest of your life. Just one last drive. What's the combination you can choose? It can be something you've run in the past or something you've always wanted to, somewhere you've always wanted to.
Well, it'd have to be a super late model at uh, Sharon Speedway.
One hot lap session. He loves
Yeah.
it.
I like
I
that
love
pick.
it.
As I was going to say,
That's a
that's
good
one of the
one.
more unique ones.
Yep.
I don't think we've had anybody pick Sharon yet.
People have said super late model before, but definitely not at Sharon,
Well,
which is an awesome place.
I'd been there to watch some races, and like I said, I went there twice to race, and it got rained out, and I just got in the one hot lap session. I just think that I watched some racing from there earlier this year and all that, and it just looks like a really fun place to race at for sure.
For sure.
I love
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking the time, Luke. We really appreciate it. Good luck the rest of 2023. And hopefully you don't wait 10 years for another victory. All right, buddy?
Yeah, we're going to try not to do that. And thanks a lot, guys, and congratulations on your show here.
Yeah, thanks so much. Take care.
Thanks, Luke.
Okay.
And
Bye
the
now.
Checkered is out on another episode of the Southern Ontario Dirt Show presented by Ohsweken Speedway and Bicknell Racing Products. Like what you hear, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with us on Facebook at Southern Ontario Dirt Show or find us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at SODS_pod. Have a question for the show? Email us, southernontariodirtshow@gmail.com. Thanks for supporting local racing in Southern Ontario, and we'll see you at the track.